Chairman, if this government was a television show, it would be entitled "It's All About Me, John Key." And that's why the Labour opposition is making a big effort today to focus on vote Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, because the whole thing is about John Key. And the whole point of the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet is meant to be to put together the policies and the plans a government is meant to have to give effect to its manifesto, to give effect to its speech from the throne, to give effect from the Prime Minister's statement. It's all about me, John Key. And this Prime Minister is failing to develop a plan for New Zealand that lasts the test of time, and that could just be 12 months, and failing in his ability to drive through real change for New Zealand in order to give people the brighter future they were promised at the last election. Hundreds of thousands of people voted for the National Party, more than voted for them in 2002 when they were led by the hapless Minister of Finance. Hundreds of thousands of people shifted from 2002 to 2008 to support the National Party because they believed there'd be the brighter future promised to them by John Key. But it's turned out that after one episode of David Letterman, all we're getting is one tyre kicked after another. The tyres have been kicked to death. They are flat. They are down to the rims or on the road, and the only place the National Party wants to go is to Tony's Tyre Service to try and get the government back on track, and it cannot happen. I heard the Prime Minister on the radio this morning asked about one of the few genuine reforms the government has driven through. I refer to Auckland governance, where they took the Royal Commission set up by Labour and managed to bring a reform through. Controversial, but that's one thing at least they have done. And John Key, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, serviced by the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, was asked about how powerful the Mayor of Auckland would be. Would the Mayor of Auckland be the second most powerful person in New Zealand? And our Prime Minister, serviced by policy advice from the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, said they might be, but on the other hand, they might not be.
Oh, what is it?
They might be, but on the other hand, they might not be. This constituted the top-level leadership from the Prime Minister with respect for the Mayor of Auckland. That was decisiveness writ large. From a man who was going to deliver a brighter future and a man who was going to turbocharge the New Zealand economy. We were going to have a step change. And what we're finding out now, sir, 2 years into this government, is that all these slogans are just that. They are just words. There is no plan to give effect to any of the words that the National Party spent the 9 years in opposition carefully road testing, getting Crosby Textor to check out. Every single word was focus grouped. They checked to make sure it tested well with the market, and they get 10 out of 10 for that. They get 10 out of 10 for the marketing and the research that they did in order to give effect to the policies they campaigned on. The problem is they've now got ministerial warrants. The problem is they've now got departments that they're being serviced by to try and turn those slogans and that rhetoric into policies that will change New Zealand, not just for a week or for a month, but for a year and for a decade. And that is the failure for the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet with their vote, that this Prime Minister is not capable of sticking to a plan. Whenever the pressure comes on, they always buckle and they can't keep going with it. You know, Stephen Joyce, who runs large swathes of the government, he's the man now for whom the road code has been designed with the contents page 1, U-turn. The most important piece of road safety that Stephen Joyce knows is the same as his political safety, the U-turn. That is the key thing that he knows on page 1 of the New Zealand Road Code. So the slogans are getting harder and harder to turn into policy, and that's where the Deputy Prime Minister actually has a point. We always wonder why he's quite as angry as he is, but it must be so frustrating to have predicted things years before they've happened, be rubbished at the time, only to sit back and watch everything he said come true. So I actually empathise with the Deputy Prime Minister, because he rubbished the cycleway. He had Jerry Brownlie's number years before everyone else worked out Jerry was a good fella, but not so good on policy. You know, he had John Key worked out when it came to bouncing from cloud to cloud. Mr. English tried to tell him all this, and no one would listen. And now he's now got to sit there trying to suppress the laughter and the giggle as the Labour Party finally points out what all these things are going to be about. Sorry.
He wishes he was that smart.
He wishes he was that. Deep down, he knows he's that smart. There's no such thing as self-doubt when it comes to Bill English. And mind you, in that respect, he'll never be lonely in the National Party caucus. In that respect, where there's never been a great connection between talent and ability and personal ambition. You know, sir, one of the aspects of the brighter future we were going to see from the National Party was going to be they were going to close the gap with Australia. So the Department for Prime Minister and Cabinet should be going through all the different organs of state to work out how this gap with Australia can be closed. as was shown today by the Minister of Economic, Mr Chairman,
Call the Honourable Darren.
As was shown today by the Minister for Economic Development, that was only ever a slogan. The National Party government has no idea what it wants to do to try and reduce the gap with Australia. And when Mr Parker asked him a simple question about income parity, the Minister for Economic Development said he was blindsided by the question. Let me read the committee the question. Honourable David Parker to the Minister for Economic Development. Does he have targets or milestones to achieve income parity with Australia by 2025? This could not be a more clear question that we wanted to know from the government what they were doing for Australia. The Department, the Prime Minister and Cabinet is meant to be driving all the policies across the votes to make sure that this can happen. And Mr Brownlee was surprised that it was about wages and surprised that it was about income parity. What on earth he was doing preparing for question time today, Lord only knows. Lord only knows. I'm not sure what special was on at Copperfields. All I'm saying is that I would have thought if I got that question arrive on a green sheet of paper in my bills box this morning, I would have thought, gee, better look up what they earned in Australia as against New Zealand. This shows me, sir, the government is not coordinated. There is no plan with regard to how the Prime Minister leads his government to make sure that these things can happen with Australia. Jerry Brownlee didn't know what the wage difference was. John Key didn't know at question time how much a 2-litre container of milk was when the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, Annie King, asked him about milk and asked him about Weet-Bix. He had no idea how much the price of bread was. They are out of touch because they have no plan other than how they got elected in 2008. So I want to just close, sir, by saying that the National Party has previously had plans before that they've worked to. And I am preparing for today, I remembered that back in the Bolger National Government, they were ambitious for New Zealand. They did have a plan for New Zealand. They did believe in a brighter future for New Zealand. They used to call it a decent society. That kind of went by the by. That was before Mr Hennaday joined them. But I found for the Parliamentary Library a document called Path to 2010, National's Plan for Securing a Future for New Zealanders to Share. And in this document, sir, from 2010, the National Government in 1993 had a plan for the country. And they were going to achieve 5% annual growth for the New Zealand economy under this plan. They talked about preparing for an ageing population by trying to help ensuring people could have savings. Well, of course, we know that this government has no plans for the savings of workers because they cut the KiwiSaver scheme, and superannuation savings for workers is one of the key advantages Australians have over New Zealanders. And yet the key government have been cutting that out, and I know Leanne Dalzell will have something to say about that. This document, sir, the Path to 2010, talked about agriculture and the importance of making sure that industry remained critical to New Zealand through better research and development. Well, of course, the Labor government took up the challenge to boost research and development for our primary industries, our critical primary industries, and the Bill English John Key government came in and wiped that, despite the fact that in the Path to 2010, the last time the National Party had a plan, 17 long years ago, that was all going to be taken care of. So the last aspect it covered was the heavy indebtedness of New Zealand at the time that the plan was written. And the Labor government, led by Helen Clark and Michael Cullen, paid down the debt of this country when people like Jerry Brownlee, Bill English and John Key were saying, don't worry about things like that, give us tax cuts. Can this country imagine how indebted New Zealand would be today if we hadn't reduced debt and that we went into the recession where we had to borrow money to keep the country going? The position of the economy this government inherited was far and away better than what they gave to the country in 1999 when they left office. They used to have a plan. They used to believe in doing things for the country. They used to have the courage of their convictions and the fortitude to follow through with policies even though they were unpopular. What we're seeing from this government now is back down after back down when things get tough. It turns out the slogans have got nothing behind them. They're slogans, they're cliches, they're rhetoric, there's nothing to it. And when it comes to the really tough decisions, they don't have the bottle to follow it through. It's U-turn on mining, it's U-turn on the importance of the cycleway, it's U-turn on doubling trade with China, it's U-turn on becoming an international financial hub for the world, it's U-turn even on simple matters like road safety, where they could build bipartisan, multi-partisan support across the House to move on issues like road safety or blood alcohol. They didn't even have the intestinal fortitude to get on and do that. What is the point of being the government if you can't lead? What is the point of being the government if you can't campaign on manifesto policies and turn them into proper plans when you become the government? It's all about me, John Key, and that's why we're opposing the vote for Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet. This guy's got no plan for New Zealand that he can make happen.
Very good.